It's that time again. It's the Burky and the Badger Board Game Babble Show. It's going to get wild. It's going to get wacky. It might even get a little zany. We're going to talk about board games and the board game industry. And, you know, we might talk about anything else we want to talk about. Hey! It's the Burky and the Badger Board Game Babble Show coming to you live and international. From the Kingdom of Babylon, we have an exciting show with a very special guest that we will get to in a moment. So, Sir Badger, tell us how you are doing, my friend.
I'm doing fine. I'm feeling Kermit the Froggy after that introduction. For some reason, we've been watching a lot of the Muppets recently. So it's like listening to the intro, I can just see Kermit going, Mr. Yes. So hello, welcome to episode 108, where we will be exposing the UK Gaming Expo. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about things that make the king go, whatever that's going to be. I haven't looked yet. I'm going to scroll past it on the list. I'm just gonna peek. I don't know what he's going to talk about, but he's going to talk about something, and maybe I'll have something to say about that. And then we're going to interrogate our special guest who is down in our Babble dungeon.
Yes.
His name is Richard Denning. And
Richard Denning, we shall run him through the paces.
Will he be set free before the UK Gaming Expo actually takes place? Is the question. We'll see if he can befuddle us. He probably will. But yeah, and then we're going to end up with our Babble subject, which is going to be talking about the UK Gaming Expo. And who else better to talk to than let's introduce him. It's Mr. Richard Denning. Good evening, good morning, good day.
Yep, good evening, good evening. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm hoping with that.
It's so good to have you, Richard.
Yeah, I'm just hoping with that Muppet introduction, this isn't a show with those two old guys on the balcony saying "worst show ever."
Oh, they're here.
You say that.
Stadler and Waldorf. Hey, turn off the show. It's such a pleasure to have you here, Richard. You know, I've gotten to know you over the last few years, and it's just been a pleasure. Last year, we were able to get together at Gen Con, I believe, and share some food with
Finny, yes.
Yeah, with Finny, yeah. That was awesome. Got to eat the hot shrimp with the horseradish sauce at Izzy and Harriet's.
It was hot that day.
That was the good stuff. Well, let's move on to our first segment. We're going to go through things that make the king go,
This is the Board Game News, where King Burky reflects on some of the current things happening in the board game industry. Some may be good, some may be bad, but they're all things that made our king go,
Things that make the king go, Well, this is kind of an announcement, but it's also a moment for me. The Gama Trade Show last year was held in a new venue in Louisville, Kentucky. For many years, they had been in Reno, Nevada, and they always had challenges with people getting to Reno. We were kind of locked up in this one great big casino venue called the Peppermill, which was really a nice facility, but there wasn't much else there. And it seemed like there was always difficulty with other regional shows. And so they moved to Louisville, Kentucky. This show last year was amazing. I got to tell you, I attended. I had quite a few business meetings, and they have said in their press release that 224 was their largest show to date. They had 2,736 people that attended and over 300 exhibitors. This represented an overall growth of 34% from last year's attendee and nearly a 50% growth in exhibitors. Now, this show is the Game Association Manufacturers Association, okay? And this was geared towards a lot of retail stores. There's about 800 retailers, I believe, that are a part of Gama. And the publishing community, pre-pandemic, this was a pretty good-sized trade show for that audience. And then things kind of fell apart for a little while. Now that they have this new facility with the Galt House and the Kentucky Convention Center, it was an amazing venue, tons of space. They really, in my opinion, knocked it out of the park. There was tons of folks that said, wow, this is the best Gama we've ever had. But the problem this year was they had booked it in March, and it was back-ending exactly right next to the New York Toy Fair. Okay, so this was a big problem for some publishers. I don't know how big of a problem it is, but one of the things that has kind of followed Gama, and maybe this is a little bit supposition, but it seems like there's always different drama that seems to be out there about their convention dates and this and that. And so a lot of people started getting on social media, and it became a big hoorah. Why did you book it during this time? Well, Richard might have some insights to this, because you probably know how challenging it is sometimes to book with a large venue that are competing with other dates that are available and other things that are happening. Well, long and short of that, we'll talk about this for a moment. They ended up changing the date, which was very interesting to me. They changed the date to be February 23rd through the 27th. Now, it's always been in March. This puts it back to back with 3 different events. So there's 3 weeks straight, I should say, of events going on, but technically people can attend all of them now because they are not conflicting with one another. Well, the thing that made me go, about it was they've got Toy Fest is February 19th to 21st, Expo's 23rd to 27th, and then New York Toy Fair is March 1st through the 4th. And then we're heading into big time convention season. Well, this is right on the heels of the Origins, is in June, but February. I'm thinking Tantrum Con, sorry. There's just a lot of activity with that convention season. It surprised me that they changed the date, but it sounds like they were able to work out a deal with the convention center, the hotel, and another hotel to enlarge the block and extend their contract for another year out into 2028. So have you had experience with that kind of thing, Richard?
Sure, yes. I mean, it's we've had a number of times where over here we've had jubilees, we've had where we had to look at the date line. We've had 2 jubilees in the history of the expo, both the recent one only a couple of years ago, and of course 10 years before then. And 10 years before then, we had to move the venue had its something on related to that, so we had to go a weekend either side of it. And of course, exhibitors and people and visitors all get the date lines in their mind, don't they? As to this is when this is on, this is when this is on, and they plan around that. And then when things move a week or 2 or more than that, even, it can be really quite a problem for them, because now can they come? Can they not come? But also, so they always say there's a sort of perceived wisdom. You move venues, you could lose 10% of your audience if you're not careful. If you lose dates, but that's the same. At times when we ended up moving both audio due to the Jubilee and just having outgrown our original venue, we really were worried about that. And as it turned out, we did a lot of work to explain, get people along, and everything was okay. But it certainly can be a concern. And but sometimes, of course, you've got no choice. The venues have whatever they've got booked, and other things are on, and there are reasons why you're forced into some dateline. But it certainly is a worry. And certainly over the years, the NEC have come to us and said, well, how about moving to the other side of the NEC, or how about moving to a few weeks back or forward? And so we'll go the other way. We're on top of Origins, and then there's other events in the UK come the other way, and you don't want to clash too much with these other things.
How do you, in this situation, the thing that made me go Hmmm is, how do you get to a point where you're listening thoughtfully to feedback, and yet you have to make a decision that is not going to make everybody happy? How do you come to the point where you go, okay, this is what's most important, and this is what we have to do, where it might not be ideal? Maybe it's going to conflict, or maybe we absolutely have to not conflict. How do you evaluate that, or how do you come to that?
I think you've got to be, it's that balance, isn't it? It's all the things. I mean, so we rely a lot on the trade halls as a probably largest percentage, single percentage of the income stream. It's roughly sort of like 60%, 40% between the trade halls and the visitors. So you've got to balance that. You've got to make sure you've got your exhibitors coming, particularly the larger companies and the likely to be the ones that are going to be sponsoring the show.
The game toppers of the world, the major
game toppers, obviously.
Of course.
You've got to have. You would not have game toppers there, for example, but you don't want to not have. You want to have everybody there if you can get them there, and if you're suddenly not got a particular larger entity that have been there from recently, then people say, "Oh, why aren't they coming? Then is there a problem?" And it can create a doubt and concerns in some people's minds. So you sometimes have to address that. And now this particular year, Games Workshop aren't with us because of a change in their policies in terms of what shows they're doing around the world. And at the moment, I think they're happy with their sales figures or whatever it is in the UK. So the UK isn't a priority target to come to events in, but elsewhere it is, America and other places. So, and then, but visitors, of course, that we're used to seeing a big Games Workshop stand in front of the main entrance might be thinking, well, where are they gone? What's gone on there then? Is there a problem? So, of course, you do have to sometimes communicate that, say there's a...
So you just mentioned something I hadn't thought about before. Did you say the income stream for the convention is 60% publishers, 40% attendees?
Roughly, so you're roughly that, yeah. So the largest part of our income stream is the exhibitors, and then roughly 40% or something like that is the visitors. So you've got to. So we try to make sure. Obviously, we've got to make sure that we've got the exhibitors being there, but we're also going to make sure we've got enough visitors coming through the door to keep them happy. So you don't want to expand your trade halls too fast to outgrow the numbers. So there's quite a balance to be had there. Between those two. Side of things, when you're doing it. So visitors are also important because, of course, there's no good having all these exhibitors if then people aren't coming. So, at various times we had to make a decision. So one of the biggest decisions, of course, we had to do about 3 years ago was, did we run in 2021 after the pandemic? We'd done the virtual show the year before because there was no choice. And then we were sort of left with a situation of having to run in July, not being able to do May that year of 21. The vaccines were coming, but they're only just starting to roll out, if you recall the sort of the way it was working. And over here they were opening up. They're opening up a sort of 4-phase plan, and the fourth phase was big events in about June. So okay, then July, with any luck, vaccines are rolling out, it's going all right, we should be okay. And then in June they announced a pause for the final step, because there was another wave. Was it Delta? Was it? I can't remember what it was. There was another wave of that came along in Delta, wasn't it? And they put it back 3 weeks. And so we then had to make a decision about, do we run? Because if we commit to running, we've got to pay our hotel bills for all our volunteers, everybody, before we know if there's a show. And if we can't run, well, that's it. There's no Expo next year because we're based in bust. So that was, I think, the biggest single stressful time of balancing those date lines and things. And of course, it's not our normal date line, late July, but it was when we could go then. And fortunately, they allowed things to open, and we managed to run a half-size show and survive to fight another day, as they say.
If you'd only knew that at Christmas you could have had a large gathering, just like they did at Downing Street.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You would have held it then. You would have held it then.
I should have booked number 10 as the venue. Boris would have let me, I'm sure.
Yeah. I just want to chip in with this. I'm going to share my screen because I have my French map of festivals which take place. And then, as you can see, just at the bottom here, there's 584 festivals in a year in France, all around the country. Now, imagine you're a publisher.
Yeah.
Do you send your team to this show or that show to demo the games? The teams have to really, really look at the size of these festivals. Are they going to be very small? Are they going to be very big? Is it going to be worth going there? Is it too far? So yeah, from a publisher's point of view, it's a lot of hard work as well. And if we scroll up here, we can see this little one here.
This little map, yeah.
It's been added.
Yeah. No, I would have to tell some of our friends at some of the other shows, though, because there are a few others in the UK of reasonable size. Who should get themselves organised to get on here. Our friends at Aircon and Tabletop Scotland, which is a nice show as well, and Dragon Me down in London and a few others. But yes, the French seem to have an awful lot.
Oh yes, they do.
So.
But they are varying sizes. Some of them are just like a hall, a town hall. Yeah. And so there's about 60 tables, and that's about it. And a lot of the times it's like Asmo Day will probably be there, but other publishers will just say, yeah, we'll send you a copy of our game and you get someone there to teach it. And so there's nobody from the official team there. But some of the larger ones, and there's quite a few of them getting larger and larger every year, the publishers will actually send members of their team to demo.
Yes, I must have been in the early years. I was quite surprised. I hadn't heard of Cannes when, of course, festival to show things. It's a big event, but it's one of those ones that the French world does seem to be almost a bubble on its own. So when you're growing up, I heard about Gen Con, Origins, Essen, all these ones, but curiously, not what's going on in France.
The French are very, very discreet, whereas the Americans are really loud. Hey, look at us! Hey, come here! Oscars! We have Oscars! So, yeah.
Well, before we move on to our game show, I think this is kind of a nice segue to, we're going to talk more about the UK Games Expo and our Babble topic after our fun game show with Richard. But to give everyone a little bit of background here, we have our special guest, Richard Denny. He's the director and I believe the founder of the UK Games Expo. I might be wrong about that. Well,
yeah, but the three of us that you might say were founders and things.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and when you got into the game hobby, how that transitioned for you to decide to start a convention and kind of what happened and where it's gone.
All right. Well, I mean, yes, I've been interested in playing games since I was about 10 or 11. I think the first time I remember a TV program called Callan. I don't know if everyone remembers. It was a movie based on it. Was an American detective thing, I think, back in the 70s, 80s or something. But there was a movie made on it, and in the movie there was a big, I think it was Gettysburg or something, being recreated as a battle, a war games battle. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, that's amazing. You can play a game and things. And so they went out and bought several books on rules and things for some of those early kind of war games rules, and started buying the figures and things. So our friends and I were doing a lot of that sort of, those Matchbox and Airfix kits of tanks and painting figures and playing around with those lot during the school years. And then I'd also pretty soon after that discovered Dungeons and Dragons and Traveller role-playing games. So that was for teen years, really. We did do board gaming, but I suppose it was more things like diplomacy, where you can lose your friends, of course, and risk, axis and allies and things. So more board gaming style things. But at university, I started discovering a little bit more the board games because carrying all these armies around, battle figures and stuff on isn't that easy when you're a student. So I went off to university, did medicine. So I was a GP, a family doctor, for 27 years.
Wow! So
for a lot of the time, this was a hobby. The games was the hobby. That was the day job.
I've had a little scratch in my throat lately.
Open up. I've been lied. But yeah, so that was what I did as a day job, and then but I was always interested in the gaming, and so that was very much the biggest hobby. You know, we did weekends of gaming with friends and things all the way through the years. And there were, we saw a little blue dot on the map there. There actually were game shows here in the UK, but they were mainly war game shows, predominantly. Not a lot of board game shows, quite small ones. I mean, the sorts of ones where, 200 people get together and play, games, but they wouldn't be publishers really there, apart from maybe playtesting stuff. And again, nothing really big. There was Gen Con UK ran for a while. It's a bit of a spin-off to Gen Con. But we'd heard of these things like Gen Con Indie and Origins and Essen, and I just thought, why can't we have something like that, basically, and went off to Essen Spiel and spoke to the British publishers, and they were there and others, and came back and said to my wife, well, there's this big thing over in Germany, there's these big things in America, but nothing really here. Pity there's nothing quite like that. And she said, all right, well, what are you telling me? She said, well, could we have a go? And that's where it started, really. So that was about 2006-07 was where we, decided to do a show, really. We'd done a couple of little local ones for our games club where we were trying to recruit new members. Just hired a hall, advertised that there was going to be got a few hundred people along, that kind of thing, but got the buzz, as it were. I'm thinking, hey, this is quite fun running these things.
So when was your first UK Games Expo launched?
2007 was the very first one we ran. So the previous year we'd done these little events I was speaking about for our club and this sort of thing. There was an event called Game that ran in for about 3 years. The first one of which we were involved in, and the several of us that were involved in that wanted to do our own show in Birmingham. The main guy that ran that one went and did one in Manchester, so we that's where we started talking. As I say, the three of us went to Essen that October of 2006, and that blew us away, really, because I know I'd heard about it, and it's when you walk through those, the size of the trade halls at Essen are quite extraordinary to see. When you and I didn't really think there'd be the industry was big enough to support that sort of scale of things. And that was where we started, really, in 2007. We sort of hired a little Masonic Lodge building called the Clarendon Suites in Birmingham, which is mainly used for medical exams. I knew it through the medicine side, and banquets and that sort of thing, and also all the Masonic stuff, all the meetings and things going on in there. And we sort of hired it, and it was a weird building because it had no windows. Which you put a load of gamers in a building with no windows isn't always the wisest decisions. But they also had all these ceremonial regalia all over the place. So we used to joke about the fact that it was the building was slightly weirder than the gamers, which is unusual. It was great. But it was a great place to do like role play games in all these little rooms with sort of like swords and banners and things on the walls. And when we first moved in, they only allowed us part of it. It was tiny compared to now. It was about 850 square meters, whereas we're now 45,000 square meters of space. So and about 800 people came that first year. But we didn't know how many we were going to get. You sort of advertise the fact, hey, we're going to do a thing. I must admit, spammed the heck out of Board Game Geek. Sort of went on lots of user accounts and sort of pinged away at anyone that's had particularly British user accounts and say, hey, we're doing this thing in Birmingham, you fancy coming? And then emailed clubs and everything I could get hold of and invited. And we thought, well, if we get 300 or 400 people that first year, we'd be happy. And 800, 1,000 people turned up to the extent that they had to send out folks to buy more food from all the supermarkets and things, and but it made us think, okay, maybe there's a bit of an appetite for something like this, in the UK. So that was the starting point, really.
So how many people were at the first show?
We ran out of tickets, to be honest, because we'd printed about 400, we had 400 raffle tickets. So we printed 400 tickets, we then used raffle tickets, and then we just started waving people through the door or just come in, So we think about 800 to 1,000 came the very first year.
Well, we're going to ask you more questions about this in the Babble topic, so we can probably move on because it will probably cross over. But I've had the pleasure. I think I met you in 2019 when we attended our first UK Games Expo, and then again in 2020, or maybe it was 18 and then 2020. And it's just been a real pleasure getting to meet you and see your passion for the game hobby and how you've grown this thing to honestly be one of the premier gaming expos in the world. I mean, of course, we have Essen being kind of one of the largest and the biggest, but I mean, you're right in there in the running with, you know, the Origins Game Show Trade Fair and, you know, of course, PAX Unplugged and PAX East, and that is starting to gain traction as well. But congratulations. It's just fantastic what you've been able to do for the hobby and increase exposure in the United Kingdom.
And it does sometimes feel like we'd be riding a roller coaster. Tony, who's the other director of the show, he sort of sometimes say doing the expo is a bit like doing a roller coaster ride. You just strap yourself in and just see what the heck happens this year. It has felt a bit like that.
We've got a Gateway Gamer runs through with us. Thanks so much for joining. He says, "Look at you guys, an official guest and all. They grow up so fast."
That's Barry. That's the real Barry. You should know that.
Real
Burky.
Barry.
Yeah.
Barry.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on. We're going to go to our sponsor section, Game Toppers.
This video was made possible with the help of Game Toppers. Upgrade your gaming experience with a Game Topper.
Hey. Of course, Game Toppers. We just finished our 5th Kickstarter campaign, and you can still go to our web store and take advantage of all kinds of specials, all kinds of new products that we're offering, over 10 brand new thematic game mats and package deals and mat storage solutions. That's really fantastic. So you can upgrade every game you play from here on out just by going to GameToppersLLC.com. But one of the things I'm going to mention during this little ad spot, we are going to be at the UK Games Expo coming up in May, end of June, or first part of June, end of May into June. And we're going to be having a large space at the UK Games Expo. But on Saturday, on Saturday, I should have had the date ready.
1st of June.
That would have been smart. That would have been June 1st at 2:00. We have a special event at our booth at 2:00 UK time, where Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules Vids and Michael Dennis from Ready Steady Play are going to come and have a meet and greet at our booth. And we're going to have a game where you're going to be able to roll dice and you're going to be able to win all kinds of cool Game Topper products. But not only that, we have brought several of our Game Toppers that are going to be ready at the show for sale. So you won't have to pay a lot of extra shipping charges. In addition, we brought a bunch of our thematic game mats, and we have a pretty nice supply so that you're going to be able to take advantage of some specials and save a ton of money on shipping, all of that kind of thing. But we have some other products that are coming to market that we're going to be bringing with to tease some of the upcoming Kickstarters that are all going to be available in the United Kingdom and in the European Union. So we're super excited about coming to the UK Games Expo, and we would love to have you stop by our booth there. And we're going to be at a lot of shows upcoming in the United States as well. The Origins Game Fair starts up on the 17th of June, and we're going to have a large presence there too and be doing similar events there. So with that, if you'd like to take a look at Game Toppers, how to convert your home table into a high-quality board game table with all kinds of wonderful thematic game mats and accessories, check out GameToppersLLC.com.
Woo! Good stuff. Yeah.
Well, we're really excited about coming to the expo. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but now we're moving on to our game show with our special guest, Richard Denning. And what game is behind the door?
Someone in Babylon has been a very naughty person and been thrown into the dungeons of Babylon. But Burky and Badger are nice people, and they're going to give them 3 questions to try and worm their way out of their prison sentence in What Game is Behind the Door?
Oh, Gateway Gamer runs through.
Hello, Fake Barry, Burky, and Richard. I'm in and out smoking a chuck roast.
Oh, I
You're the
like
smoking
a
man.
smoked chuck roast. I'm all
It's
in.
not an English thing, is it, Richard? It's smoking.
Smoking chuck roast. The weather here is not really. Is it outdoors? Is it out outside on the barbecue type thing? Going out?
I have 3 smokers, and we'll see if I bring some of my smoked jerky if I can get it done in time for the UK Games Expo. But maybe we'll be able to partake of some fresh smoked meats.
Yeah. Okay. I will get my tongue ready for that then.
All right. Well, the first part, Barry, you better explain our show to all of our wonderful listeners.
We are going to find out a bit more about Richard's gaming hobby, habits,
habits,
bad things.
Habits.
Okay, we're going to be asking 3 questions, and we do this in a kind of game show style. If you wish to participate in the live chat, you can do, or if you just want to guess while we're going along, you can do as well. We're not going to stop you because this is going to be then edited and pre-recorded, and then you can. Anyway, so our first question is going to be, what was the last game that Richard purchased? And we're going to do this in a 20-question style where we ask a question each. Richard will give us a yes or no answer, and then to move things a little bit along, he's going to then show us one component from the game before we ask our second question, and then component, yada yada. And we're going to do this 5 times and not 20, because otherwise it'll be past my bedtime.
So it'll be fun. Now, this is interesting. I always find I have a disadvantage because of what's available overseas compared to the domestic United States market. Oftentimes they're different, but I'm going to do my best to stay in there. And Barry, you can win it for us, brother. You can win it for us.
I could, but again, the French market is a little bit different to the English market.
All right. Well, we'll see.
I've lost my
All right. So first item, I'm going to ask my question. Is it in a Ticket to Ride size box?
Is it in a Ticket to Ride size box?
If you want, you can show us the box and the title.
I'm trying to think because there's lots of different sizes of boxes, aren't there? But I think yes, I think so. In terms of its width and heighty sort of stuff. Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
There are different depths to it, aren't there? Ticket to Ride.
Yeah, they can be
boxes.
different, but about that 12 by 12.
Yeah.
Okay. My first question is going to be slightly different because you spoke about wargaming earlier. Is like your starting into the game. So is this game something to do with conflict?
No.
Oh, okay. So now Richard is now going to show us a first component of the game, and we will describe it to you podcast listeners.
Okay, I can see if this is coming up. Oh, there we are. Is that? Can you see that?
It looks like a little blue wooden gear. All right. It looks kind of chunky. It's got a light blue gear.
That's the sort of thickness if it's any use. Yeah.
Pretty nice. All right. That looks like a pretty nice little.
It looks familiar as well.
I know that I've seen that, so I'm not sure about that one. So I think I'm going to pass on this one.
Okay. Euphoria.
No.
No. Okay.
That's an older Stonemaier game.
That's an older game, but you never know. It might have been.
Well, they did a redo of it. Yeah, that's
precisely. I mean, someone could have said Hero Quest.
All right,
that's an older game.
Yeah.
True, but it's a newer one now with Renegade Game Studios.
No, it's not Renegade. It's Avalon Hill.
No, Renegade took it all over.
No, that's Hero Escape, not Hero.
Oh yeah, Hero Escape.
Quest.
Oh, you said Hero Quest.
Good question. Okay, so, question number 2.
Number 2 is a Euro game.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a Euro game because you're kind of in Europe, right? Kind of. Not really anymore.
Kind of. Sort of floating around in an indefined manner.
Okay, my second question is...
And I voted to stay, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Unlike my mother.
Yeah.
Euro game. Okay, I'm going to go with... I got a feeling... I don't know why, but I got a feeling... Is Stefan Feld involved?
Oh, so look at the designer.
Going right to a designer.
I'm just going to go over here a minute.
Yeah, go for it.
Go a second.
He doesn't even know the designer. That sounds like me.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Don't ask me why. I just...
Dun, 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 dun.
That first component is talking to me. It's like,
I'm just looking. Right, okay. Got it. Right.
He's gone down the road for a pint at the local pub.
I'm back.
Oh, damn.
No, he's not listed as a designer.
Okay.
Right.
It's not Stefan Feld?
No.
All right. Well, that was a pretty specific question, Barry. All right, so component number 2.
Yeah,
Component number 2.
Number 2.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. This is a wooden pillar.
Mm-hmm.
This has got screen printed graphics. It's white pillar. Now, gosh, I don't remember that gear, but I'm going to make a guess because maybe there's an upgraded component thing that I don't have or something. But is it Nova Roma?
No.
No.
Yeah, because it does have that kind of Roman Colosseum.
Yeah, that's awesome game from 25th Century Games. I thought I got the deluxe version, but okay. Go ahead.
I'm going to pass on guessing.
Pass?
So, yeah.
It definitely looked Roman.
It definitely looked Roman, and I'm just trying to...
All right, number 3.
Okay. Number 3.
Number 3. Number 3. My question is, does this have a deck building mechanism in the game?
No, I don't think so. No, just thinking back to certain elements of it, but no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this game about? I don't know. How would you say it? About creating things, inventing,
inventing. Ish. Yeah.
I'm talking about the theme. I'm not talking about the mechanics or anything. But
yeah, as in, do you? You don't really. You're creating, certainly. Yes, creating. Okay. I would say
creating. Do you mean like creating and building?
Yes.
Oh, see, I got an extra clue out of it.
Yeah. Do you mean like creating, building, and probably eating?
All
right, they're creating buildings. I get it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So a component moment number 3.
No, we get to guess. We get to guess.
No. We get component and then we get to guess. Just to reassure.
Oh, you didn't guess. You passed. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm
right.
You're right.
Yes. Oh, yes.
You don't know what we do we?
I recognize
it.
That.
It looks like a little Tetris piece. And I have a guess. I'm going to guess before you, just in case I'm right. So then I win it for us instead of you. I'm going to say World Wonders.
You would be right. Yes.
Yay!
Those are the other pieces I was going to be doing.
Okay, cool. World Wonders from Arcane Wonders. Now, we didn't know anything, but of course, Arcane Wonders sponsors the Burky and Badger board game Babble show. And that game is just fantastic. What a great game for, a $50, $49 game. And to have
really nice pieces, isn't it? And
isn't it amazing how well they did that?
Yeah.
How did you like the game?
I know it's good. It's a good game, and I enjoyed it. That was actually bought at Essen, so it's actually. I didn't realise when you said, "But it's last time I bought something," I thought, "I think it was actually Essen." It's like when you got hundreds of blinking games. You don't every week necessarily go out and buy a new one. And Essen was the last but one or two shows I've been to, and I normally try and buy two or three things there. The old days would come back with a car full of things, but
right. It's always such a challenge for me to purchase anything overseas because I got to try to get it home somehow.
One year we actually came back. There's 7 of us in my car and 200 games between us. Lots of them were little card games and little expansions.
Wow.
So we managed to get 200 games. And a box on the roof, and a 7 seats, a big boot and everything. But basically, we all came with piled on top of our knees, and and I was driving. There was games there, and you were. Can you move 7 Wonders a minute?
Our first trip to Gen Con, the same thing happened. We had an old 1998 Buick LeSabre with 4 of us, and we unloaded our luggage and stuffed our clothes, all of our underwears and everything underneath the seats in every nook and cranny, so we could put games in the suitcases. And we had games, that whole trunk. You opened it up, and it was like Gen Con. Yeah, pretty fun. All right, well, we're going to move on to number 2.
Okay, the question number 2 is, what game is Richard most excited about getting? So he might have backed it on Kickstarter and hasn't got it, or he might know or seen or played a prototype of a game which is coming pretty soon to retail. Or with his experience in the biz, he might know of someone that's got a game coming out. And we're going to do this with a drawing. So, Richard, I think he's drawn a drawing already.
I've drawn a drawing. Yes, here we go.
He's a master artist. He's trained at a famous facility in Paris.
And that's going to save us a lot of time on editing as well.
Oh, my goodness. Now, we got to look at this. We got to try to explain this. Okay, so I got to tell you this. He tore this out of a notebook, a spiral binder. There's hanging chads all over it. Okay, so
this could be worth thousands in years to come.
This is a very special piece. Okay, it looks like there's a set of grids that have little things on the grids. I can't quite tell what they are, but there looks like there's a like carrots going into a pot. It looks like a fire. Is that right? Is it a pot?
Yeah, it looks like a cauldron, and then there's an arrow coming out the cauldron going into some bottles. And then there's, I don't know why, but there's like a traffic cone somewhere floating in space, and then there's a broomstick, and then at the very bottom there are 2 people, a bigger person and a small person, on a big table and a small table, and the big person looks like.
I thought the big person's sitting in a hot tub,
possibly, or a smoker.
Smoking a big cigar.
He smoked children tonight. And I tell you one thing, that's not AI generated art.
Right.
So no.
Definitely.
Well, I think the inspiration was.
Okay,
so he's throwing stuff into the pot. It appears that there's some kind of brew going on, some kind of potion. And so we get to ask some.
No, we don't. We just guess.
Come on.
When was the last time we played this game?
It's been a while, but let me...
making up the rules as you go along, don't you?
I was trying to get some more information out of them. Don't you know the plan? That was strategy.
Okay. I'm going to do my Swedish chef impersonation then.
All right. You go first while I keep strategizing.
Okay. Because that grid thing I thought was a honeycomb at first. And then I was thinking it kind of reminded me of like, what was it? Crux of Quedlinburg.
I thought the same thing.
But I think that was a spiral, and because again there was the cauldron, the potion making, and then selling.
Yeah, and they have the herb witches expansion, but this didn't look like it was spinning. It looked like it was actually hex grids, like Catan or BattleTech size type of grids, and they had looked like they had. If it were carrots or whatever was going into the cauldron, it looked like some of those resources were on those hex grids.
Again, another part of me, the English part of me, wants to say that this is a new version of Blockbusters, the board game. Because it looks like the grid.
Oh, please, Bob.
Oh dear. But no, a new version of Quacks of Quedlinburg may be coming out. No.
No. Well, maybe, but it's not that.
Okay, it's not that one. Okay.
Well, this is something he's excited about. And so was this something you kickstarted, or is this something you got coming?
No, this is something that he's giving. I should have given information. You cannot tell all. I deny the knowledge.
You are obligated to answer the questions.
I am obligated. Okay.
Or we have a polka.
I have no memory, Senator. Okay, it's actually a game we played. We just announced. I don't know. A little bit of a thing, but it announced today the awards, judges awards winners for the expo. So what we do with the awards thingy is you find it on the website maybe somewhere. There's he says quickly looking at Googling. Anyhow, what we do with the judges awards, all the games come in. We have 400 odd games in lots of categories.
What kind of awards?
All the board game awards. It's for the expo, the UK Gamers Expo. So we give out awards for the trophies at the show. And they've done two ways. They're done by judges deciding on a shortlist, and then at the show, the public votes on that shortlist. Yeah. So we already announced the shortlist, and out of that shortlist, we've announced a winner in each category. So they already know the judges award winner, but there's also going to be a People's Choice, which will get decided at the show. Anyway, one of the I try and avoid voting in the awards to keep independence and all that kind of thing. But I do oversee a lot of the awards and get them out to the groups. And quite a lot of the time, carry all the games to a club. You sit down and play games as well, which means get a chance to see some of them, which is quite cool. So this is one of the games related to that process. In one of the categories.
Right. Well, I don't know what it is, but the only thing that I can think about is maybe there's a new version of the game. I think it's by Alexander Pfister called Broom Service.
It isn't that, no.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I
think we're stumped.
Yeah, you're stumped. Okay. So the game.
I think you got us.
Yeah. So the game is called Septima, which I think is Mind Clash Games, is it?
I should have known this. We work with Mind Clash.
So this is you're basically got like what they call witches and things like that, and you're brewing potions to heal the sick and trying to avoid the witch catchers. And of course, there you go, that's the thing. And if the witch catchers catch you, then you get put on your witches upon trial. So and you try and influence the outcome of those trials and get your witches back into action and that sort of thing. So the board is like as you say, Catan style board, but there are lots of resources on the board, and you're playing action cards to do whatever you do, and all the witches have powers that you see in there. And we all quite enjoyed it, playing it during the process of monoxidized bits and pieces and potions. So the components are nice. There's a lot of depth to it, so you have a lot of replayability, a lot of strategy. I think that looks like an early version of the prototype. But as we see, you move around the dots.
Did you draw that?
That's my drawing. Yeah. and when you do a gather action, which is one of those cards you can play, you then get the resources for surrounding hexes and that sort of thing. Depending on
Mind Clash games, I tell you, they do a really good job with their games. I've really been impressed with them.
So I think this might become, if it's out of the expo, my Father's Day present. My parent, because the Father's Day in the UK here it's sort of a week or two after the show. I think it's usually June, isn't it? Time. So the kids usually ask me, "What do you want?" So normally I choose a game that someone's selling, and so this might be my Dad's Day present from the kids for this year.
Wow, fantastic!
Nice.
So Kabuki Kid is here. Woohoo! We have with us Richard Denning, the founder director of the UK Games Expo. We're in the second part of our game show, and he just told us about a game called Septima that he was excited about getting. I saw a game a couple years ago, and it's about ready to get shipped pretty quick, but it's a game called Brett Walda that I'm really excited about getting. And it's kind of set in that old, the old Norse, the Vikings are invading, and you've got the Saxons and the Normans and all that kind of stuff going on in that time frame.
Yeah, no, I've seen that as well. It does look pretty good, actually.
It really does. I'm excited about it. I hope it's good. Well, part 3 of our game show. Hey, Rick is here too. Woohoo! Nice to have you.
In the cast.
This third part is, what is your current favorite game? The one you're playing and most dreaming about while you're working or taking to bed at night.
Right.
And this time, he's going to give us 5 one-word clues. And in between each word, we're going to have a guess.
Okay. So, the first word is Beatles.
Okay. And this is, you're playing for your freedom, Richard. Okay, because we're
tied.
We're
tied.
You stump us on this.
Yeah, I get out. I get to run the show.
You're free.
Yeah, you get to get to the show.
Otherwise, you stay in irons.
We don't get to go to the show.
Oh no! He stays in irons. Well, he's got contingencies for this.
Beatles. Oh,
Beatles.
Beatles. Beatles as in a bug beetle.
I don't think there's many John Lennon board games out there, do you?
You never know. It could be music.
Right. Oh, I got to look at the chat because Kabuki will probably get the answer, and I'll
don't look at the chat.
Don't look
okay,
at the chat.
Beatles.
I haven't got a clue.
I'm thinking some of these nature games, so I'm going to say Earth.
No.
Okay. No. All right. They just finished up their Kickstarter, which was really successful.
That was good. Good game, though, Earth.
Yeah. Okay, number 2.
Okay, Inheritance.
Yeah. Wow. Is this Beetle snuff?
It's not Beetlejuice.
Beetle snuff. Quark. Okay. These tube grubs are chilled to perfection. All right.
Why are Burky's jokes so funny? Because they are. Oh no, that's pirate jokes.
That's
pirate jokes. I got it wrong again. Oh.
Okay, Beatles,
and Inheritance. I haven't got a clue because those 2 words are very, very distinct from each other.
Well, it's making me think of that game that's kind of like Brewster's Millions, that you're trying to get rid of all of your money. Yeah. I have both of them. Why am I drawing a blank on the name of it?
Because you've
Prodigals. Prodigal something. Prodigal. Am I right?
No, that's not the answer.
Prodigals Club from CGE. Yeah, I love that game. Okay. Right. It's not that. How about you, Barry?
I'm blank as a...
Come on.
It's the back page of this book.
Come on. All right. Number 3.
Steam.
Okay. This is the game that he likes the most at this current
time. As in actual Steam or actually like being on Steam? Come on.
Or live Steam.
He's just grinning. He ain't saying. I refuse on the grounds that it might incriminate me. I can see it going on in his head.
Steam that comes out of water, or steam that comes out of a smoker, or steam that...
Or,
And again,
Age of Steam.
It's
Beatles. What the heck's Beatles
Okay,
got to do with anything?
Steam.
Oh, grief.
No, it wouldn't be brass, would it?
no.
Okay.
Oh, that's good idea, because I was thinking steampunk.
Okay, yeah.
But he would have to say steampunk, otherwise it's illegal to say
no.
part of the word. That's a rule. We just
Yep, no. I'm not. I've not broken the rules yet.
He's not broken the rules. Good, because I didn't even know it was, but that's great.
No.
Okay, Beatles, Inheritance, and Steam. Beatles, Inheritance, and Steam. Oh my. Beatles. What the heck? What would Beatles do?
With Inheritance.
They eat wood.
Do they?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Ticket to Ride Legacy.
You're right. Exactly.
I was right.
Right, legacy. Yeah.
See? That's what's called intuition.
Yeah. It's on,
That's
on the button.
also called lucky guess.
Look, I guess.
Woo!
Okay. So why is this game the top of your list at the moment, then, Richard?
Well,
why is this the game?
And what have Beatles played into this thing? Tell me.
Beatles. Well, they did a song, didn't they? Ticket to Ride.
Oh, see, it was the band.
Yes.
I got a ticket to ride.
Very good. Very good.
Then you were going to get stations and then
Very
Eastern, because I think the maps in the Ticket to Ride of the Eastern Seaboard or area of the States, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because the reason at the moment is that because we, at this point in the year, what we end up doing is playing lots of games because of these awards period and all this kind of thing, and but I don't tend to get an opportunity to do a lot of the same thing. So the last time that we did that, really, or getting into a game in a bit more detail, was we started playing Ticket to Ride Legacy around Christmas time in the office with the rest of the Expo crew. And we've having quite some fun, and it's certainly intriguing. It's one that we've all agreed we want to get back to after the show, because it's I quite like the old little clip things where you clip the tickets and things. That terror, that's horrified one of the guys the first time we did it. You used to go up with the ticket and go click, and they destroying the game. But there we are. So yeah,
Kabuki says she's in the middle of a Ticket to Ride Legacy game. We're really enjoying it.
It's good. And I think the difference is, Ticket to Ride is a great game anyway, gateway game and everything, but obviously it's relatively light, and that's fine. But the good thing about the Legacy thing is that storyline developing over, and it changes, doesn't it? And you get new rules, you get mechanics, new powers and abilities, and I think that gives it a bit more depth than just a straightforward Ticket to Ride game. So.
Okay.
Well, my wife's favorite game is Ticket to Ride, and we've played several of the expansions. She generally doesn't like learning a new game, so I was a little hesitant with adding all the new things all the time, if she would enjoy that or not. But everything that I'm hearing from so many people is that the game evolves at a nice pace, where it's just a little bit of an add-on. And so now I'm all geared up to get this game, and you can't find it in the States right now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to get a hold of. So it seems like it's doing very well, and most people have sung its praises. So that's awesome.
I think it's available in the UK, but it's also an enormous, great big box. So putting it back in your luggage is going to.
It's a huge box.
Your weight allowance of a bit, but
right.
But I think it's available here, and
well, that's interesting. Well, that's our game show, and I guess the Burky and Badger have taken it to the streets, baby.
Makes a change, doesn't it? Though.
Well, we're going to move on to our next segment, our Babble topic. But before that, our sponsor, Arcane Wonders. Excuse me. You see here, we've got the game World Wonders by Arcane Wonders. Arcane Wonders, man, this company has just been knocking it out of the park with hit after hit. Foundations of Rome. We just received the expansion for Roads of Fortune.
You have it.
Baby, we have. And it's, I loved it. Loved it. I've played it 3 different times at 3 different player counts, actually. And it really adds just an extra level without creating extra complexity. It just creates kind of little extra goals and thinking, and it really improves that whole outside of the board aspect. And of course, this game is so produced in a way that is just fantastic. You can still take advantage of some of these products directly from, Rick actually came and played, and we played Roads of Foundation. It was pretty fun, he says. That's available from arcanewonders.com. Of course, the hit game, World Wonders, but they also have some other amazing games that are really doing well with their Furnace and Furnace Interbellum. They also have their Planetarium and some of their classic games like Onitama and Air, Sea, and Land, different games of this nature, and Gap that are available at the upcoming shows. So if you want to look at some super fun games that are extremely well produced, check out arcanewonders.com. Boom. And now we're moving on to the Babble topic.
Topic. Thank you.
Topic. Shut up.
Tic-tac. Oh, okay. Shutting up.
And now it's time for the
Babble, 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 Burky and Badger's board game babble.
Boom.
Hey. So we are with Richard Denning from the UK Games Expo. Richard, from the first time I met you, it was just a real pleasure to meet you. And of course, Finney was at the show, and I developed a lot of rapport with Finney. Is he helping out this year, by the way? Or?
He'll be there. He'll be there. He used to work for us at the expo as our warehouse logistics guy, but he's got moved on to other sort of jobs and things. But he's back as a guest, shall we say? He's got a sort of, we somehow slightly sort of like inadvertently invited him back as a permanent guest of the show.
Yeah, Finney's awesome. You've put together
a
really fantastic team there. I felt like the show was always extremely well run, and after our first involvement at the show, we entered into an agreement to do a sponsorship where we provided you with some of our high quality 3mm double stitched play mats with your logo. That I thought that logo just turned out brilliant on those mats for the open play area. Tell us a little bit about that and how the response was. It
was good. I mean, of course, what happened, the timing of that was unfortunate in the sense that it all happened during the pandemic, if you recall.
Right.
It was all ready to go. It would be great and fantastic, and then a certain thing called COVID came along and closed us down that year. So that meant we didn't get a chance to actually see it in the flesh, as it were, until the following year. And that year, of course, you couldn't come because it was still international travel, but it still was great to see. That was again the first show that run in the UK, the first show internationally for about a year and more. So to have that whole opening gaming area with all those mats on and really was quite a spectacle. And
so they've been up for what, 2 or 3 years now? 3 years?
We used them 21, 22, 23. This will be the fourth year. Yeah, I think.
Fourth year.
And we had to try to be popular enough that we've had to literally stop a few people walking out the door with them. You see this one. Sometimes you see these people rolling them up. At the end of the show, we're packing away, getting things, they're rolling them up, and they say, "Excuse me, we need those for next year as well." And I'm just helping.
Well,
maybe just help you out the door then.
We did a sponsorship with Origins that was similar to yours, where we tricked out their entire open play area, and it created such an upgraded play experience instead of just these wooden tables or with tablecloths, and for people to be able to play in style. And the commitment that you made, to partner with us was a significant investment for yourself. But I know that you did that because you wanted to create this space that created this awesome experience for your attendees. And I think that's a real awesome destination spot.
Yes, it's very popular. I mean, everybody wants to play all these games they get to see, and maybe buy off these publishers, and because we've got it open into the evening, and that's important to have all that space, both at the venue scene across the Hilton, to allow gaming to carry on into the evening and things, and also during the daytime. And I think it's those mats help to certainly make the place, as you say. Otherwise, it would just be blue cloth, which is otherwise what we put down. So I think those have made a difference to the visual impact of that area.
I think that was kind of one of the biggest problems with Gen Con. While it's a great show, and even Essen to a degree, it's all about going to a publisher's booth, and of course you can demo a few games, but you really can't find a place to sit down with your friends and play something that you just purchased or something that you may have brought. And then you're trying to find a place at a hotel or all of that kind of stuff. And you created an environment and a venue for those backers. And man, I'm thankful for the relationship, but really, really want to commend you for what that commitment was to your backers.
I mean, each year we try to grow it a bit, that sort of space, and it's always a struggle because, of course, you get thousands of people coming to the show, and everybody wants the space, and they can only provide a certain amount of room for that, because you also want them doing all the other activities, going around the trade hall and doing tournaments and maybe seminars and workshops and other things. But I mean, I think we have around about 3,000 seats in the various open gaming spaces, so it does provide a fair amount of room for people to do that, which I think is important.
We have quite a few questions that we wanted to ask you. We already kind of talked to you a little bit earlier, so those of you that are joining us live, you can go back and listen to this. But we talked about how Richard got into this hobby, and what did you say it was, 2006 or 2007?
I think the first show was 2007. So is this the 17th? I think something like that. Depends on whether you do or don't count the virtual year. But it's something like 17 years. Yeah.
You were a doctor, and you saw going to Essen. You started to see this and put on a couple little shows, and all of a sudden you had 400 people at your first show, you thought. And how did the expo grow then? How did that evolve into where you are now in the big metropole area in Birmingham?
Yeah, so we had 6 years in that first venue, what we call the Clarendon Suites, which was this sort of banqueting suite type venue, and it grew from something like maybe 800 or so that first year to about 2,500, something of that nature in about 6 years. And we were bulging at the seams in that venue. We were using every nook and cranny of this venue. We eventually got to know that it's a Masonic lodge, so they were quite sort of secretive about certain parts of the venue, because these are all, obviously part of the ceremonial purposes of these buildings. So they didn't really want all them to, but in the end, they allowed us to use pretty much everywhere, apart from the inner sanctum, we reckon, because we mapped the place out, and we reckon there was a hidden bit. Good dungeoneering experience from all the D&D games. And we said, "What's in that bit there?" And they said, "Oh no, there's nothing there." I said, "Well, it must be. We wouldn't just have an empty an area. Oh no, can't tell you." Anyway, so we outgrew that space in a neighbouring hotel, and it was just so happened that the penultimate year in that venue, we had two visits that were important. We had the Stevium come, who are now Asmodee UK and part of the Asmodee group, but they were the biggest sort of distributors of games in the UK, and they came and visited us. And the same year, Larry Rosnai, who was CEO of Mayfair Games, came on and he was on his way to Europe. He was traveling through the UK, and his British sort of representative retailer who basically carried Catan and things in the UK said, "Well, come to the UK Gamers Expo, come and see it." And he came over and asked to see us, and said, he wanted to support the show and sponsor it and things, so he became our first sponsor. And pretty much a similar message from Asmodee was, "Well, this is great, but this can grow, we think. But if you're going to grow, you need a bigger space. You've got to make the jump." And it so happened also that the Hilton had actually, I think, contacted us and said, "Have you thought about maybe expanding and coming here to the Hilton Metropole?" And so we went and saw them, and moved to there, and it was a little bit of a worry about the move of the venues and move of dates and things about 1 year, and but it worked, and we grew again by about 50% that first year. So now we were approaching something like 4,000 or so visitors by that point in time. But we were still in a hotel type environment, so the trade halls were, the various banqueting big rooms and things they do big weddings in and stuff like that. Everything was in there, and we outgrew that in about 3 years. So by the end of the second year, it was obvious we were going to need to move again. We were going to have to expand again. So we decided we'd get a marquee for the third year. So we used a marquee in the car park, and literally it was every part of the hotel. Everything was bulging at the seams. The aircon broke down. It was but people coming and moaning about that. We said, look, okay, but next year, we're now big enough. We've got enough people coming. Because now by the time we're getting onto ours, 7,000 people. Because now we can make the jump into an actual, a proper convention hall. And that then was 2013 was the first. Was it no 13? Sorry, 7 8 through to things. I think it was 16 was the first year in the NEC, which is where we're in the NEC proper. And that was just 2/3 of a hall, and then it became a hall, and then a hall and a half, and it's continued to expand. We've still got the Hilton. Hilton's important because it's obviously accommodation wise anyway, but also lots of the role playing stuff happens there, live entertainment events, and again more of the open gaming and more little rooms and workshops and stuff like that. It gives us room for it. So yes, it's the expansion. I think sometimes we wonder quite how it happened. Did we manage to grow? And I suppose we were lucky in a way, in various ways, that the gaming was becoming more mainstream. So it was moving from a point when I grew up in the sort of 80s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. Gaming was still a bit of a geeky hobby, really. But in that time, coming into the 2000s, games cafes were starting to open around the country, in Oxford and other places, and things like Big Bang Theory and Stranger Things a bit later on were coming on and sort of showing gaming in a sort of maybe more positive light there, where the public was sort of thinking, "Oh, this is interesting stuff," and and seeing the games being played, and I think that helped with the growth of the industry and the interest from the public, and we sort of, I suppose, rode along on the back of that, really.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you that are in the chat, if you have any questions for Richard at the UK Expo here, or about the Expo or anything, feel free to jump in on the chat, and we'll ask those questions directly of Richard. How interested, or what was the process where you started to see that publishers were willing to jump on board with your show?
Okay, we go right back to the beginning. We sort of let it be known that we were interested in doing something a bit like an Essen, maybe a bit like a Gen Con type of event in the UK. And we actually got contacted by a couple of publishers in that were UK based, who said, "Well, if you want to do that sort of thing, we'll help support you. We'll try and encourage the other UK publishers to come along, because there isn't a show that does that yet in the UK. But you've got to go to Essen." They say you've got to go to Essen, and you're going to have to wander around and talk to people and try and persuade people to come. So we got in the car, we drove to Germany, we tromped around Essen, spieling and with a clipboard and literally saying, "I've got this game show. Would you like to come?" sort of thing. And we got an awful lot of "Who the heck are you?" type questions. But gradually, more and more, there were a number of them. People like Surprise Stare, who still come to the show, Ragnar Brothers, and Burley, Peter Burley, who said from the start, if you run a thing, we'll come and we'll try and persuade other UK publishers to come as well. But that first year was obviously very much UK only, publishers and things. But even from the second and third year onwards, we started to get a bit of interest from occasionally some overseas companies. But I think it really had to get to the size of the first of all, I think you had to get to the into the Hilton, and 5,000-6,000 people coming, and to start to get interest from more international publishers, but also that backing of folks like Mayfair Games and Asmodee, saying we want there to be a show of this scale and in the UK. So you keep running it, we'll make it bigger, and we'll get the content, we'll get the publishers along, we'll come and we'll persuade Fantasy Flight and and all these other elements of Asmodee Group or something to have demos of their games there. It wouldn't be the case necessarily that the companies themselves initially were going to come over from the States or wherever, but they would get their stuff there and they would get their games there, and Asmodee or Stevie, as it was then, would demo it. So there was quite a bit of that as Barry was saying earlier, as sort of shows where they would send the games and then hopefully you get people to demo it, and then gradually they'd actually say, we want to be there. we want to be there and actually start demoing these things ourselves. But that really, I think, was at the stage that you get to the NEC, and now we're in a convention centre. Now we're in a sort of a proper venue for that kind of environment. And that first year when we moved in there, I looked around the hall and thought, this could be a hall at Essen, not the big hall, but one of the other halls. And then one day maybe it'll start. One of them other ones, but maybe one day it'll start to look more like some of the bigger halls, and we've gradually seen that kind of growth of expansion of those companies wanting to bring more stuff, to have more space, and to make their stand look cooler and more interesting, and not just a few tables with tablecloths, but actual, the sorts of stands you sometimes see it. How
many international publishers would you say? I don't know what's the total amount of publishers coming to this show, and how many of those are international?
So we have about 600 or so exhibitors in the broader sense. That could be retailers and other things, but large number of them are publishers. But there's other folk that do novelty gifts and accessories, and like yourselves, but publishers. If you say generally about 600 exhibitors. Of which about 120 are non-UK ones, so it's still about 80% UK, but about a good 20% or so are non-UK. And I looked at what I was looking at the other day actually, and it was the figures. I think the biggest single one would be from the States, where we have about 30 companies coming over from coming over for the show. But I think I worked out there's about 120 from about 42 different countries. And what we're seeing is certainly a growth of. We always tended to have quite a bit from Europe, even. Obviously we had the double whammy of the pandemic and then us leaving the EU, which did create a bit of a logistical issue for some of the European companies. But now a lot of the red tape.
We're lagging a little bit.
Oh no! Can you hear me? Okay.
Are we still live?
Yeah, we're still live. That must be you.
Hello.
So, yeah.
Oh, he's dropped out. Don't worry about him, Richard. Carry on.
Okay. So the
okay. I think it's back on my end. Yeah.
We're okay. Okay. Yeah. So what I was saying, I think, was that we'd all used to have the European companies coming. It dipped a bit. Obviously, the pandemic caused a problem. Then we had the Brexit issues. So that meant we had to rebuild things. People had to learn, how do you get stuff into the UK if you just want to sell it and all that stuff. But I think a year or two on, we put a lot of effort into logistics solutions. So you deal with Spiral Galaxy, that's one of them. We asked them to help companies get stuff into the UK and help them with their and other maybe their deal with their tax problems and VAT and all the joyous things of trading. And now we're outside the EU. And so that's now rebuilt, and we found we're back to the stages where we were in about 2019, with about 120, and I think that is growing. What we're also seeing is a lot from the Far East, so the East Asia area, Japanese, Korean, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand as well, and all of that's cool to get these very international feel to the show, and that's been good to see.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I had the question down. How does the UK Games Expo compare to other conventions? I know you travel to a lot of conventions, and I travel to a lot of them. I've probably done 20 some different venue conventions, and then many of them that we attend every year. Of course, a lot of the major ones, every convention seems to take on its own dynamic, if you will. They all have a certain feel to them. From my perspective, I'll let you explain what you think your perspective is about what's different, or how does your convention compare to others. But for me, the UK Games Expo, it gives, as a person coming from the United States, it gives me a little bit of that international flair and culture that is really, really interesting and really cool. So I love that. You know, not only did we go to the expo, I went to Warwick and went to Warwick Castle, you know, some things like that, you know, sampling some of the local cuisine and all of that is super interesting, and meeting people from your culture, you know, all of that is really neat. But the convention itself, it feels very similar to me to like Origins, which it gives me a flair of a lot of publishers. There's a lot of offerings, a lot of new things are kind of being presented for the upcoming, you know, Gen Con or Essen releases. And you're seeing those publishers display that. There's plenty of product to purchase. There's lots of cool little bits and bobs from all different companies. And for me, it's not so large that I feel lost in the crowd, and yet it feels significant. I've always had every time, this is my second favorite convention. You know, I love Origins as one of my favorite bigger conventions, and the UK Expo is very similar feel to me. I really, really like what you've done. How do you see your convention compared to others?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned at the start that the sort of inspirations to some extent were a combination of Essen Spiel and Gen Con. So we wanted the feel of Essen, where I was very keen on the publishers coming and bringing games and demoing games and hopefully starting to think about showing their newest games. We knew it would take a while before they might start releasing new games at the show, but now that is starting to happen. The exhibitors that are starting to think about a release maybe at the expo in their sort of timetable of the year if they've got several releases, and I think that's good to see. We get a lot of what a lot of them do is to bring their prototypes, their up and developing games, maybe stuff that's going to come out at Gen Con, maybe stuff that's coming out at Essen. Quite often we get that first chance to play thing happen, you know, that maybe because we're pretty much at the start of the cycle of the big conventions, so a lot of them are getting their big games out, and maybe a little bit later in the year, but they're showing it for the first time maybe at Expo, which is good to see. And we've sort of built that up quite a bit in encouraging the development of games as an aspect of the show. So we have quite a large playtest area, quite a lot of publisher development goes on. There's speed dating, as we call it, between publishers and designers, where they can pitch their games. There's networking events that happen. There's lots of seminars and workshops and opportunities for that sort of interaction between designers, publishers, manufacturers, and everybody to actually make the games happen. And I think that's part of the show that we were very keen on. But then, apart from that, activities going on in the trade hall, we also wanted the sort of events that were you see at Gen Con. An event scheduled of tournaments and role-playing games and seminars and workshops and other things. So we have quite a lot of that going on, and that goes on into the evening as well. So there isn't just daytime activities. There's live shows. I go up to the Edinburgh Fringe most years under a loosely disguised business trip to basically to go and see if I can recruit a show or two to bring to the show. We have a number of the Edinburgh Fringe sort of shows. Come and do a gig or two at the expo. And some of them have been running now for quite a few years, and we rotate a few, we bring in new ones. But there's some of them now got cult followings, particularly the Dark Room, which is this crazy Australian guy who runs a game based on those old 80s adventure shows. You awake to find yourself in a dark room, and and what do you do? And you go north, switch light on. How do you find the light? It's a dark room, and all sort of stuff. and he does all this just live in front of a screen where all the options are on. which is cool to. If you ever played it, it's worth going to that. And everybody, and ultimately, inevitably, you die, and everyone in the audience, goes, "You die, you die, you die," and things. And there's quite a cult vibe to it, and so those shows are part of it as well. And we have our Vikings that go and set up camp between the NEC and the Hilton.
Oh yeah,
have a big Viking village there, and they do combats and battles. And
and then they come parading through the hall with all their trumpets and horns,
they invade at some point or other. And the cosplay elements. We have a lot of Star Wars and Doctor Who and Star Trek and other cosplay elements going on. So I suppose it's that. What I wanted, I sort of heard of things like Gen Con, and I wanted that kind of a feel, something where you go to and there's never enough time to do everything, so you've got to choose what am I going to do this show out of all the elements that you can do, and hopefully you want to come back another year and try to get and do the other stuff that you weren't able to do. So I think that's for the kind of immersive feel of wanting to be there for the weekend rather than just nipping into the trade hall and buying a few things was what we wanted to do, and I think we've managed to create that vibe pretty well.
Yeah, with the size of it, it's once you go in, you don't want to go back out.
Yeah. Well, you've been in the queues for a while if you want to get in again. Yes. But that's, I suppose, a sense of it.
So as we're
am I getting very dark here, by the way?
No, you're okay.
I'm okay.
You're fine.
I might get a bit of light on me. Anyway, yeah.
Well, while we're about ready to wind up the show, but what are the I'm going to give you a two-part question here, but what are you most excited about this year's show, and what's new about this show that's got you jazzed or that you want to tell people about? So
in terms of this is one of those questions which I must admit, whenever I always dread answering, because my run up to the expo is looking at maps, drawing rectangles, colouring them in, and counting tables, chairs, and have people got mains orders and all this sort of stuff. So it's all about the detail of the show. And then people say to me, "So what game you're really looking forward to seeing?" And you have to think, think of a game quickly or something. There are a few that I'm interested in looking at, but actually what the most exciting things about the show to me is combinations of things. It's that buzz of seeing things. So I'll get into the show at 6 o'clock on the Wednesday morning. It will be empty. There'll be nothing there. There'll be no furniture, and I'll help let in the furniture guys, and so they can get set up and start laying out all the tables, chairs, and everything. And so seeing from 6 o'clock in the morning on the Wednesday, all the way through Wednesday, through Thursday, all the exhibitors arriving, everything starting to happen, the structure being built and everything, the banners going up, everything like that. And then seeing we get to a Thursday evening, we open up for some gaming that night, and we have the guests like Luke there and Ian, and we'll turn up and you welcome them, and then you start seeing the exhibitors that and and there's that kind of sense of reunion a bit, isn't there, at these sort of big shows, and and that is the most exciting bit of it, I think, for me, is that sort of we're off again, here we are, great, we're back at the expo, and meeting the people that you last saw at, I don't know, whether it be Essen or whether it be Gen Con or whatever. So that's a lot of it. And then what I love about this trade hall is, you said those bits and bobs stores are some of the great ones, because there's I want to go around and there's lots of games I'm interested in, but I also get quite keen and interested in strange novelty things and accessories and items, and so what people have come up with ideas for accessories for games of all sorts, role-playing games, board games, miniatures, and all those sorts
and
of things.
game tables and game top
and game tables, of course. So a lot of those sorts of things are what are part of the fun of the thing, isn't it? It's wandering down an aisle and seeing something you've not seen before, or just seeing something cool about someone's given some thought to whatever it is they've designed here, and that's pretty good. But there's a few games and things that I'm looking forward to seeing this year, mainly because of interest in either the theme or maybe I've mentioned September already and things, but There's one called Doggerland. I don't know if you've come across that one, which is basically Doggerland is that
yes,
I
know one of the designers.
So it's the land under the North Sea. There was once a land called Doggerland. The land bridge between Europe and Britain was inhabited 15,000 years ago or something, and also the sea came in and swept it away. But basically, there's a game based on that now. Like sort of historical based themed games and things
from Super Meeple.
There's one game that we came across again when we were playing the various awards games and things called Go Ahead Punk, based in San Francisco, and very much a sort of Clint Eastwood sort of hunting down the gunner who's terrorizing San Francisco, and it's a bit like
my day.
Like a Scotland Yard or Garibaldi type game, where there's one player is the gunner and everybody else are the cops, and what you do is you're trying to track down and stop him. Hopefully getting him out of the city and things, and it's one of those hidden movement things where only he knows where he is, but every so often he has to reveal where he is. Usually when he shot somebody, but basically, and then he's trying to get out of the thing. So that's Go Ahead Punk. That sounds that looks good. And then earlier on we mentioned Earth. So their new game is Terminus, I think, which is Inside Up games. So I think they've got a game called Terminus, which is a building a railway network around a city, and the tube networks, the city infrastructure, and all this sort of stuff. This is it, and it's a very crunchy. Seen a bit of this. Very crunchy Euro, one of those ones you want to sit down and watch a video before you play it the first time. But it's I love their Earth game last year, and this has a sort of interesting one of those roundel style play things where you have to decide the order of the sequence of what you're doing. So I've got to do that next, then I go there and do that, and I'm going to pick that up there so I can use it there, and all this sort of thing. And to mention just one more that looks quite interesting, there's a Sky Team, which is Sky Team. Who made that now?
That's been a big thing over here.
Yeah, so that looks quite interesting. But it's an interesting idea, isn't it? They actually got, I think, pilots and stuff involved in this, and gave them come up with scenarios, and you've got to land the plane and that sort of thing. So that looks quite interesting as well.
We're partnering with Paverson Games. They're going to have a couple of our game toppers in their booth, but they had their hit game Distilled, which is fantastic. They've got a brand new game called Luthier that is about musical instruments. And I saw the production. I haven't played the game or anything yet, but knowing what they did with Distilled and then what way they've presented this other game, I'm really excited to know more about that game. The theme looks awesome. The production looks amazing. So I'm kind of excited about that one.
So certainly plenty to look forward to seeing. Yes, and often it's that serendipity thing. It's the sort of accidental stuff you see when you're just wandering down an aisle and come across something you've never heard of before or never seen before. That's often what the most fun thing. I mean, I go to Essen every year, and of course they have massive lists of things. And one of my guys that demonstrates for me, my publishing company, he always goes with little clipboard folder things, ring bound things, analysis of all the lists from Board Game Geek and the top 1,000 whatever it is of games and this sort of thing. And he'll have his, and I must admit, I don't really have the patience to go into that level of detail.
No.
Usually, I'll have a look and see what's buzzing around a bit, and sort of and that's how I picked up World Wonders, because that was somewhere on one of the lists, and that looks interesting. Those pieces look cool. I think I'll buy that. So that's as detailed as my analysis usually gets for Essen.
Way back when I used to visit Essen with my friends, they would have their big shopping lists, and it would be a case of like, we need to go there, we need to go there, and I had no list. I just like, I like that, I'll buy that. So it's like. Nice and easy.
Yes, but it's,
one thing I'll say, Richard, going back to 2017, my first experience at UK Expo, I was called up to run a booth out the blue for Monolith to demo the Batman Gotham City Chronicles. And I was out of the blue, I was just told, would you like to try that? And I said, okay, fine. And so I met up with this guy I didn't know called Flavian Loisier.
Oh, yes.
He is now responsible for Hashi.
Hashi Games,
Hashi Games. And so I didn't know what the hell I was doing there. I had no experience in anything. I was just told to go on a certain day, go and set up and get the booth number and everything. I did all that. Obviously, ran into some problems. And the great thing was the staff there were so helpful and so level-headed. It was amazing. So my first experience was doing a job I didn't know how to do at the UK Expo and having a few issues with the stand and tables and chairs and electricity and stuff. But it was a cakewalk due to the fact that the staff was so very, very practical, helpful, as I said, level-headed and cool. So
cool. It's nice to know. We usually try. Usually exhibition services that you might want to interact with is actually my wife, so she usually runs that. She's on there, and most of the exhibitors will get to meet her because they get their passes from her or come and talk about tables and chairs and power problems or anything else that might emerge, and hopefully she'll sort it out.
So tip of the hat.
I love the show, and I love meeting all the new people. Our reach isn't as significant overseas as it is, of course, in the United States and Canada, but we're starting to develop that market a little more and have a lot of exciting things in the future with Game Toppers. And so we're hoping to grow that audience and become more interactive, in that area. But I love the people there, love the convention, and certainly grateful to be working with you, Richard, on it.
Yeah. Well, no, it's great to have you over, and especially some of that sort of beef jerky makes it across and things like that.
Beef jerky always helps me negotiate deals.
Yes.
Oh dear! Well, what's beef jerky? I've never had that before.
Well, the stuff you can buy in shops here is very hard, non-chewy, very it's hard as a rock, and you can't really get. Whereas the Burky stuff is nice and moist and sort of somehow not more pleasant. And,
it's surprising how it's still moist, like 10 days after he's left his home.
Yeah.
Well, that's because of all the chewing I do of it.
Yeah. Or he pops it in the bag.
Well, again, I guess we're going to wrap this all up. We want to thank everybody for joining the show. Richard, thank you so much for taking the time out to tell us a little bit about the expo, and we hope it goes extremely well for you. I look forward to seeing you again. And Barry, let people know how they can find out about us and the expo on all of our socials.
Okay, simple, very simple. You can find us on YouTube, where we are now, or on Facebook under Burky and Badger Board Game Babble. You can also just go to your favorite podcast listening streaming service and look for Burky and Badger. Very simple as that. Go to Board Game Geek and check out our guild, which is number 2248.
2248.
And be updated on when our next podcast live streams are, so you can join in the chat as well.
And join us at the UK Games Expo. Game Toppers is in booth 1-968. We've got a really nice space. We're going to have a lot of toppers and a lot of game mats.
And a lot of jerky.
And maybe some jerky. If you ask me for some jerky, you may find that you'll get some. So 968 at the UK Games Expo. And remember, at 3 o'clock, I've had to change the time already, 3 o'clock on Saturday, June 1st, Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules Vids and Michael Dennis from Ready, Set, Play is going to be at our booth for a meet and greet, and we're going to have some giveaways, and so super fun time there with our little dice game. So stop by the booth, 968, and we'd love to see you there.
With that, everybody, I will eat it all. I will eat all that jerky, and then it won't be moist.
Barry's going to be there. You get to see Barry and get his. He brings his tattoo machine so he can tattoo his name on your arm or buttocks or
I'll sing you
whatever.
a song. Thank you very much for watching. I need to do the thing.
Adios, everyone.
I need to do the thing. Where's the cursor?
Ow. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Where is it? There it is. No, it's not. It's
we're
moved.
still live. We're still
We're
live.
still live. We're still live.
Cut
Ready?
it off. Cut it off already.
3, 2, 1.
We're so glad we had this time together. And now it's time to go. It won't be long until we have another show. So keep us in mind, get online. Burky and Badger will be back in no time.